Hello and a warm welcome to another episode of the Third Half Podcast, a podcast where we talk all things sport.fun, covering both football and American football. Bit of a change of scenery today. Last week, well, 2 weeks ago actually now, I did an episode on my own and obviously explained that Samoos and Verlove had kind of stepped away from the pod. And today I'm joined with a new co-host going forward, Mr. Andrew Laird. Laird, how are you doing this week, mate?
I'm good, and this is definitely not the second week that we've tried to do this, and is definitely the first time.
Yeah, I didn't want to put any shade on Rick's for bailing on us last week, but glad to have you, and it's always nice to chat with you, mate. And today we're joined with a nice guest, Mr. Baiqn. I don't know how to pronounce it. Thank you for joining us today. Going to talk all things about kind of aftersport.fun and a bit about your sport.fun history. How are you doing, mate?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Palmer. I'm excited.
It's all good. Jump straight into it then, I guess. So for those who don't know and might not be in the Discord server, kind of, you're very quite active on there. Whenever there's a game day, I see you dropping in. Who is Baiqn, and kind of tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a college student. Like many of my friends, we were very into fantasy football. The season's been a little disappointing. I'm a Bills fan, so it did not end the way that we were hoping. And now the team has made the baffling decision to fire McDermott, which just makes no sense. But a little bit of background for me. I started getting into crypto in around like 2021. My first ever NFT collection, for anyone who was around or remember that, was Solana snakes. It was like this little like pixelized snakes. Very funny, didn't do very well or anything at all. But from there, I ended up kind of like getting into the gaming space a little bit. There was this game called Remnants. I helped them out with some of their creative stuff. Then from there, I worked with Shrapnel for a little bit, and that was quite cool until summer ended and they didn't have any more money, which kind of sucked. But it kind of just bounced around for a little bit. I'm finishing up my studies now. It's last year, so I have to enter the workforce. But basically, beyond that, I've just been trying to find new things to do within crypto, and I did liquidity providing in Meteora for a little bit as well. Kind of just bounced around trying to find what was like really interesting to me. Gaming was kind of typically where I settled into, but that did eventually lead to sport.fun. When I joined, it was football.fun. And I'm not really a football guy. Like I played soccer, unfortunately. I know, sorry. Growing up, and I was a goalkeeper. It was great. I loved it, but I don't follow European football really that much at all. But the concept was sick, and I love fantasy. And one of my favorite movies is Moneyball. So seeing this, I was like, I have to try this at the very least. So I took literally everything I had in crypto still, because it's been a long time and I haven't really had a giant lump sum or anything like that. I took it, tossed it in, loved the game, kept tossing more in, and eventually I was just full ported. And I realized, I was like, wow, I have a lot of sport.fun people at this point. And around that time, they started doing the NFL packs. I was like, I need this. I need to get into this. This is way more up my alley. And they put out NFL, super fun. Immediately, I was having a blast with it. But I remember around like 2 weeks in or so, Drake London got injured. And his price just tanked. It went from like 25 cents or 2.5 cents to like a fifth of it or a half a cent. And I was like, wow, okay, that seems a little bit harsh. But I couldn't like prove it, because and they had announced like postseason rewards at that point, but I couldn't prove it. So I was kind of like, this seems like a really good buy, because he's going to have postseason rewards. He has placed amazingly during the season, but now he's injured. How does this work? So I started doing some math. I created like the really preliminary site. And around that time, now the scores are all relative on afterseason.fun. And sorry if I'm getting ahead of myself here, but now the scores are all relative. But at the time, he was like but it would now be a score of 5. And we haven't seen a player like that at all, even coming close to that. But at the time, that was nuts. I was like, that's insane. Like he's going to be receiving significantly more TP per dollar than anyone else at the end of the season. So I bought in, and then shortly after that, like I think the day after, I put up the site, because I'd already made my moves, and I was like, let's see how. I kind of didn't expect people to like see it that much. I'll be honest with you. I was kind of just like, I'm just gonna put it out there. Why not? And then everyone was like, "This is sick," and I was like, "Oh shoot, now I'm locked in. I have to update this." But yeah, sorry. That was a lot of rambling. But do you guys have any questions for me?
I'm actually kind of curious because you were like obviously involved, like you got into Sport.fun through other crypto stuff. Like, do you remember literally like when you first heard about it, like which kind of like what avenue? Because you said you were into fantasy sports, but I feel like a lot of the push at the beginning has been focused more on crypto people. You fit in that Venn diagram of crypto and fantasy sports, but like, can you think of like literally how you heard of Sport.fun?
Yeah. So I actually had a mutual who had just decided to go and play a little bit of the football side of things, and they posted that they had bought into this player. I was kind of like, that's interesting, like player buying. And then from there, I looked at the wiki, and I was looking at like basically the pitch for Sport.fun, for Football.fun actually, specifically at the time because NFL wasn't out yet. Um, and I was like, my friends are always in, like, I have friends currently who watch Premier League and all that kind of stuff. And I recognized some of the names. And I think I went in with like $300 off the bat. And I was kind of like, I want to learn more about this. So I joined, and my first tournament, I bought only goalkeepers. Um, and I still don't think that's a bad strategy. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't have any math for the football side, but I was having a blast with that, just watching the goalkeepers rack up. Um, but because that's when I knew goalkeepers. I couldn't like look at anyone else and be like, I don't know if they're good or not. But immediately after that, AJ posted his like data dump at one point, and like went through and I like spent like hours doing like looking at it, and I was like, this is sick. So it was just such a like positive experience up about. I was like, this is so much fun. I'm just doing like pseudo analytics on sports guys. This is exactly what I like to do. But yeah, I joined through a random tweet from some random mutual that I had, who was playing, and I don't think I've seen them play since. So, but to be honest, it kind of worked out.
Carrying the torch then of sport.fun from them. So I was going to say, so it's quite interesting as well then that can I ask what your college degree is or background? Because obviously very much from what you're saying is you're very analytical and data driven, and you're not somebody that goes with, you're more head than heart, I'm guessing, with you kind of players and trades.
Yeah, I mean, I say that I also have like 350K Kenneth Walker the third shares right now. So, you know, but yeah, no. So I'm studying information systems. It's part of the business program here. I'm pretty doxed elsewhere, so I go to Boston College. It's kind of well known at this point, amongst some other people. So I don't think that's a huge deal to say. But yeah, so finishing my information systems degree, I'm looking post grad to probably go into like gaming or something like that. So this is kind of more of me just. It wasn't even a flex of my skills. I mostly used like ChatGPT at first, so like I'm not gonna say it was like fully me, but it was. I was surprised that it ended up being so useful for people. Like very pleasantly surprised.
I think there's definitely like
Yeah.
a first, I'll call it like a first mover advantage when it comes to like providing third party tools. Cause I think people there's always somebody who's like, man, it would be really cool and if that person builds something and they're like, hey, I built this thing, and everyone's like, oh my God, like this is awesome. And I think that's exactly kind of the reaction to afterseason.fun. I have a friend who was trying to do it on his own and was basically doing his own portfolio and updating it manually every day. And he was like, yeah, so I finally figured out, and I had seen After Season and I hadn't like totally dived in yet. And I was like, would this be helpful? And he was like, shit, this is exactly what I've been trying to do on my own. And so, yes, I'll happily just let this site do the work for me. And I think, like I said, you were the first one out there, and I think everybody appreciates like how valuable that information is. And so, yeah, great job on it, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I mean the outpouring of support has been really like nice, and like I'm gonna end up using this in my portfolio, so it's beneficial to me as well. Like when I go and try and show like what I've done, this is like definitely gonna be up there. But also just like the community's been really, really appreciative, and I really appreciate the community for being appreciative because it makes me want to like keep updating it and doing it. Speaking a little bit of that, I know a lot of people have been looking to see like their off-season TP, and the current system was that you had to manually input every single player. And that sucks because I mean I had 36 players at one point. That took forever. It was terrible. So I finally got it implemented. You can now paste your wallet address in there, and it'll give you all your players in your after-season TP. A little bit overdue, but it's on the website now. So if you guys want to go do that later, it's totally up. And if you have any issues, of course, let me know. I'll get it fixed.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so
did you share afterseason.fun then with your friends that play the game before you put it live, or did you just straight away go, I've done my trades, here's the information for the community?
So funnily enough, I've pitched like the NFL side of sport.fun to a lot of my friends. But we play a lot of fantasy. There's not a lot of sports betting around me. So I'm really the main one who's doing like sports betting, quote unquote, because I do think this is a bit different from traditional sports betting. But yeah, so I'm really the only one in there. So I made it like right around Christmas or so. And I didn't actually have the chance to really share it with anyone. So I just acted on it and then put it in the Discord. And um, immediately people were like, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? Wait, can we have this? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I was having a blast. I spent the weekend. I was like, yeah, I can make that. It's sick. I mean, Kersher can make it, but I was like, this is sick.
What do you think? What do you think keeps people who really like fantasy football or fantasy NFL to avoid the confusion? Like you said, your friends are really into fantasy, not as much in sports betting. What is it that keeps them from looking at sport.fun and being like, oh, that's the fantasy I want to play?
I think right now, the biggest thing that I would say is hard is the onboarding, because most of them are not like crypto native. Like I'm crypto native. It was not difficult for me to port everything over. I must have used the bridge like 17 times over the course, just sending stuff. But like, they get a pop-up that says like, hey, this is a smart wallet. Are you sure you want to send this here? And they don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And that's going to freak them out. And then on top of that, like the I think it's MoonPay or whatever the credit card onboarding there is right now, high fees. They don't like that. They see if they're putting $100 in and they get 90 back. That's not appealing. They go on a sports book right now. You put $100 in and you get 400 bonus dollars.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not real, but it looks good. It feels good.
Yeah.
So I do think part of it is just kind of adoption. And then also like slippage fees and everything are like, I'm used to that. That's fine with me. I'm okay paying both the fees and eating slippage and doing all that. I'm comfortable with that. But I think for a lot of people, until there's like higher liquidity, it's going to be something that's a little uncomfortable for them. And then just the idea that it's an asset and not a bet. Like I think my friends would love that. My cousin loved the idea, and he used to do a whole bunch of dynasty stuff. And I think hopefully he's going to join soon. He's been waiting for the token to drop. So now hopefully we'll join soon. But I do think it appeals to people who want to spend more time on fantasy as opposed to less, more analytics, more analysis, more dynasty approach to fantasy. And that is my friend group. So I'm still hopeful I can get some of them in here. I want to run some.
So I suppose that's quite a good point as well when you talk about the differences between a sports book where you put $100 on and within the next 2 hours, your bet has either won or lost, and you've either got the money or you're done. Whereas I suppose with sport.fun, you put $100 into player shares, you probably won't be pulling that money back out for 4 to 6 weeks because you want to get through a few different game weeks, get your TP, promote the shares. It's quite a long-winded process. So from your kind of opinion, do you think that people will adopt and adapt to the fact of kind of slower burns? You mentioned that the likes of kind of a dynasty fantasy where, you might pick up a rookie, you're not going to see any benefit within your fantasy for 2-3 seasons. I suppose it's kind of, we're borderline more towards the dynasty sports rather than a single season or kind of a single game week sports bet. Is that, so I'm guessing that's something that you prefer a lot more, the longevity and the long-term holds and like you said, you picked up Drake London saying, well, he's injured, but actually I can get off-season rewards and then I've got a great wide receiver for next season. Is that kind of where your mind takes you?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it works very well for me. But I also like that both styles of play are completely valid. There are people who are going to be buying dynasty players and holding them for a long time, like Drake London. You see a lot of people moving into Justin Jefferson. He has like 0 offseason TP, but I do think that he's a very interesting buy because, frankly, he's one of the best receivers in the game. He's had a terrible year, and the Vikings can't afford for him to have another bad year like that because he will leave, and he'll get better by leaving. So I do think that there's a lot of interesting decisions to be made. And then on top of that, like Kenneth Walker sucks in offseason TP, or he sucked a lot harder before this past week, but he is not a great running back either. So you're not buying him to be in like the top tier of dynasty running backs. But because of the ways the playoffs have worked, he's a phenomenal choice for tournament points, especially since there's that 20% or up to 20% boost with the recent fun release. So I like that there are a lot of ways to go about playing and be successful. I do think that it will take some adjustment for people new people coming in from the fantasy world specifically. Like what I do really appreciate is that the scoring system is very similar. So I know pretty much right away whether or not a player is doing well or not. And I could check other sites and I'll know. And I think that makes it really easy. Like a lot of my friends have hit me up and been like, dude, Kenneth Walker's going crazy. Like he's got to be so happy about this. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty stoked. So I do think the learning curve, I think, is more on the side of like a comfortability curve, if that makes sense. I think people just will get comfortable with holding their players for longer periods of time and not putting in $10 and coming out with 20 or nothing, and more like putting in $10 and coming out with 8 for one day and then some tournament points. I think that will happen over time. But I'm pretty bullish on it.
Do you still play the football side of it then? Because I mean, you've obviously just mentioned that SportDotFun for the NFL mirrors, traditional fantasy point scoring. That I think has been quite a big hurdle on the football side of things. I know a lot of people have come over and gone, right, I'm going to get a Nick Voldemort because on a traditional fantasy Premier League, Voldemort scores quite high, maybe in these different point scoring things. But actually in a football.fun, he scores terribly because he doesn't get many dribbles and pass completions. And, do you still play that then? Is that a struggle for you? Was that, trying to understand scoring? Because I know you mentioned you went for goalkeepers, which is pretty much, have they kept a clean sheet and how many saves have they made? It's quite easy to understand the goalkeeper scoring.
So the scoring made sense to me, but I'm also blessed with the fact that I have never played another soccer fantasy. So this was my first one. So I've, learned it from the ground up. So I didn't have any sort of like cognitive bias towards anything else. So I think though what I did notice was that a lot of people were kind of like, this is inconsistent. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't hit the feel of like how a player did in game. Like, why is this score so? I remember when we first started, Yamal kept popping off and everyone was like, he didn't look that good, but he has like 200 points. And everyone was like, I mean, but to be fair, he had like 200 points, so he must have played kind of well at the very least. But I think that feel, for me at least, was nailed a lot more in the NFL. I still play a little bit. When player prices dropped it, I pretty much went everything back into the NFL because I was like, this is way too good a deal to pass up. But I do think the feel for me, and it's probably just because I understand it better, for NFL has been better. I think the scoring and everything, again, this is extremely biased because this is what I've played most of my life, but the NFL just feels like right to me.
Definitely interesting, man.
Sorry to cut you off there, Palmer. I was, have you used any of the other third-party sites and either put that stuff into after season, or you just use it to, like, you just look at it as a separate tool?
Yeah, absolutely. So like AJ Data was the first one I ever used. His Dune sites and everything were amazing.
Yeah.
And then after that, Benjamin with his NFL Vercel app. That one's awesome. Shout out Ben, by the way, because he got me the wallet addresses I needed in order to be able to create the wallet pasting tool. I'm gonna be getting the API refresh, the pricing API refresh soon too. So shouldn't have to. You guys won't have to wait on me to find my JWT token and paste that in anymore. So that'll be a great update for everyone. But yeah, also Tenero, phenomenal site over there. That's how I did a lot of my sanity checks for like whether or not token prices were looking correct, whether or not share amounts were looking right. Like, as you guys have probably noticed, the active shares, not the most accurate. I pull them from football.fun site. Football.fun site, I'm not sure entirely how they're pulling them, but they aren't exactly the most accurate, and that's because their active shares are based on who has people in their lineup. So if you take someone out of their lineup, it doesn't show up in the active shares. Tenero's site really helped me nail down what a like reasonable amount was, and it's why I have the conservative or aggressive modes on the site. I'm hopefully going to be adding a like accurate mode soon. I'm just worried about giving wrong information, so I'm still sanity checking that one a little bit. There were some edge cases, but like I think the funniest example is like DK Metcalf has like 1 million more shares in players' wallets than what shows up on the active wallets on football.fun. And it's because someone has taken him out of their lineup and they own a ton of shares. Kind of, and also they're trying to make you think it's a great deal. It's not. DK Metcalf is not that much better than anyone else. I just wanted to put that out there.
Appreciate the shade.
No, I mean, it's certainly something that I've seen kind of in different discords and servers being explained, and in fact, it was only yesterday in one of the chats that Rix was kind of going through again, explaining people exactly how active shares work, by saying if there's X amount of shares in the marketplace and his circulation supply is Y, that kind of difference is the shares that are held, and I think people are kind of looking at that, and it's something that people are getting tripped up on. I know, Laird, when we did our call the other week, I was kind of looking through different kind of spreadsheets, and I saw, off the rip, Dak Prescott was a high scorer, and when I looked at his kind of active TP shares, I think that calculation was skewed, so it looked like Dak Prescott was higher than he was. Obviously, Josh Allen has since gone and done a bit better, but that kind of little calculation, I know you gave me a bit of an elbow, Baiqn, the other week in the Discord when I said something about the Bills stuff. But
I was a little upset at the time. In my defense, I was a little upset at the time. It's a bad way to
I
go
can
out.
imagine. So definitely kind of, I think when people look through the site that you've put up, it's one of those where, yes, it's in black and white, but don't take it as gospel. And again, me and Laird were talking about, I think what often people might do is go on to expected TP shares, click, TP per dollar and just buy the top line. But obviously the more people that do that, the lower it becomes. And it's kind of a cat and mouse game of who are you actually buying into and why are you doing that? Just gonna go there. Do you guys, so if we jump into the after season site now, Baiqn, have you got it open? Do you want to screen share and kind of walk us through it?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, this is the analytics site that I've made. It's afterseason.fun. So basically the way that this works is that I have created a relative value score for each player. And this basically just judges, if I were to put X amount of dollars into any player, which player is going to be the most effective for offseason TP per dollar. And currently, as you guys can see, Jordan Love is number one, with 3 immediate tight ends after him, which is kind of been the story of our players ever since I put the site out, which has been quite interesting. Drake London, when I first made the site, as I said earlier, was at like 5. So one interesting trend, and you can kind of see it in the data as well, if you scroll down. One interesting trend is that ever since this data has become more readily available, most of these value scores have trended towards 1. And that makes sense because it's a relative value score. So everything here is compared to the median of all the players in terms of efficiency. So the median, the last I checked, was Gianti. Now it's Olave. So Olave is the median. He is the exact amount you'd expect to get if you averaged everyone. Didn't average. If you took the median of everyone, I didn't want to deal with outliers. But basically, that means that Jordan Love is in terms of raw value score with no adjustment for shares, is going to give you 1.35 times the amount of TP as Olave in terms of efficiency. Whereas Zay Flowers, for example, if you were to do a share adjusted score, which factors in circulating shares, would give you a 1.3 or 1.19 of just regular value score. So I think some people have gotten, I'm sure a lot of people have noticed these scores dropping over time, and that looks bad on paper, but it doesn't mean they're actually any less efficient. Like, as you guys were saying earlier, a lot of people like to come to the offseason reward estimator, come down here and hit the dollar per the TP per dollar. And that's another really effective way of looking at it. And it kind of just depends on what you're looking to do. Are you looking for do you want to calculate the exact amount of TP that you're going to get on the offseason and potentially see who's the most efficient in that sense? Or do you want to go look and see who is the best in terms of just relative player value? Me personally, I actually like relative player value. I'm looking to set up a team that is successful, not just in terms of the TP I'm going to get on the offseason, but also their play next season. So I like to do a lot of kind of comparative analysis in terms of, does this hit my threshold? Like, I think personally that, I have some examples here. I think that Baiqn, even at 0.89, is going to be more attractive than, I was about to use another player that I think was attractive, A-Chain, but and this is a bad example because Walker's currently playing, but I think Baiqn's more attractive of an offseason hold. And I know it's a super hot take than Kenneth Walker, the third. But you could even look at Taylor, who is, I think, at 1.2 right now. 1.14 he's dropped. Taylor gets you a decent amount more offseason TP, but you have to consider then, I'm holding Taylor through the offseason. Do I want to hold Taylor at the beginning of next season? Is Baiqn going to rise in price? As we get an influx of new players coming in at the beginning of next season, as I envision, are they going to buy Taylor or are they going to buy Baiqn? And so I do think that there is a lot, even with all this data out there, there's a lot of ways to decide how to end up actually going about it. And again, that's kind of really why I love the game. Just to go really quickly through the rest of the site, player analysis is just a general overview of the player's efficiency. Weekly reward stats is when we're in season and when they put out the next TP amount for this next week. I'll update this, but you can put in any player name, the number of shares you own, and you'll be able to see what they'll earn for that week. So just as an example, Kenneth Walker, 360,000. If he has first place, I would get 46,000 TP. And this is an estimation, but it generally ends up being pretty close. Usually this is on the low end. As people sell or sell the player and move out, you end up getting more. So I was estimated to get 48,000 TP this past week with the Kenneth Walker first place. I ended up getting 51,000. So that was a pleasant surprise. Also, there's this chart. I'm actually not sure how many people have seen this, but this one's I really like this chart. This shows you, based on circulating shares, which players will give you the most TP based on their placement. This is based off of a chart that AJ made for the football side of things, and it's like my favorite. So if you put $100 in, how much TP are you going to get? And you can go to I think one of the standout examples here is Isaiah Pacheco. If Isaiah Pacheco ever places, which he probably won't, but if he ever does, even the third place guys are going to be eating really good. Because he just has no shares on the market. It's really fascinating. Now, this is based off of SportDotFun's active shares, active shares. So I'm not sure how accurate it is, but I think it's pretty accurate because in tournament, not for off-season, but in tournaments, their active shares seem to be somewhat correct. Off-season rewards is the one that I think most people will get a lot of use case out of. So it's got a load from wallet feature now. So, sorry about that. Just grabbing my wallet really quick. But basically, if you are looking to check how much total offseason TP you're looking to get, all you got to do is paste your wallet in here, load that wallet. It's going to load all your players, all your shares, and you can scroll down and you can see what your expected TP is. But basically, what I'm hoping people will do is what I'm expecting people to do is go in and start deciding, in a comparative analysis standpoint, which players they want to hold into the offseason based on the amount of TP they'll get during the offseason versus how dynasty impactful that player is. Jamar Chase doesn't have the world's greatest offseason TP output. But man, he is a phenomenal receiver, and he's number one on a lot of people's dynasty lists. So I wouldn't be surprised if he maintained a very high price. I think there's also going to be some surprises. I think people are going to come in and see some shares of guys that they maybe weren't expecting pump up as people realize how valuable they are. I'm not going to give a ton of info on that because the info is in here somewhere, and I think people will find it relatively quickly. So, but there are definitely some guys who are very good in terms of dynasty and also pretty damn good in terms of offseason TP. Moving on slightly, then we have a legendary pack calculator. So this is just a baseline I needed to make a while ago in order to be able to give out the expected value of TP. And this just averages player prices with the amount of shares you'll get from a pack and returns the value. It's really simple. I update the amount of shares in the back end when they update the amount of shares. This is up to date right now. It also makes me feel shitty because whenever I open legendary packs, I swear to God,
that's not my average.
That's what I'm saying, dude. I'm getting I'm pulling like Olave and Kincaid after he lost, by the way, not before, after he lost. I'm pulling Kelsey. I don't understand it, dude. I got a $76 legendary pack in this past opening. It was rough.
I average mine. I mean, so that calculation of your average kind of TP, I think it was 137,000 over the off season. I always estimate a legendary pack at about $130, just a lot less than obviously what you're estimating there. I just think hit rate, that's roughly where I'm at, probably at 120, 130. So for you as it stands now, and I'm sure you might be saying goodbye to some Kenneth Walker shares later on in the season, but as it stands, you'd finished the off season with just under 28 legendary packs, and if that was $130 on average, then you're walking away with $3,500 passive, over the next kind of 5 months, not even all the way to the start of the season, because exactly like you say, we're then going to go through different cycles where new users come in, and users don't come in on day one of the NFL and start buying players. They start, fantasy drafts, they happen, the ball starts rolling on that weeks, if not months, before anything even start kind of gets set into stone. And I think it's absolutely brilliant what you kind of mentioned in there is people do have to be wary about what the game's going to look like next season, because if there's, if you're looking at 10 players and you're buying into that player that's, ranked number 7 out of 10, when we get more players in, are they still the 7th in the game, or are they now 15th out of 20? And it's kind of, where does that put people? So, when you're looking at the likes of Jamar Chase and a Justin Jefferson or a Bijan Robinson, they are the guys I think that people will come back next season, and doesn't matter what team they're playing for, they will be right. I need you in my, in my squad. So it's definitely a balance, and it's a balance that I'm kind of going through now, where there's some players where I'm like, I should probably sell and get out of my agency. However, I'll bite the bullet knowing that, come next season, like a Devon Achane, is somebody that I think will do really well next season. So it's good to hear a bit about, where you're coming from. I'm somebody that does it impulsivity, just kind of don't care about it. I'll buy now, think later. So it's great to kind of see that. I think I'm kind of on the similar mindset as you, considering you're very, very backed by the data. So it saves me having to check if what I'm doing is actually good or not. I'm going to believe that it is. So no, it's a brilliant, brilliant site, and there's so much in there information-wise that if people haven't already, they need to definitely go and have a look.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry to cut you off there. A quick question on the legendary pack calculator. Do you keep that historical data at all?
I really should. I do not currently. I have the nice thing is I can actually backdate, and I did this recently. I can backdate prices for players. So I don't have readily available snapshots, but I was able to go back and take data snapshots from the past, just using the blockchain. Wasn't just querying the blockchain, which was nice. I was thinking about trying to make this a historical data set that people could then access, and then I ran out of time. So Hopefully I'll get there soon. I also don't even have like user tracking yet, so I have no idea how many of you guys are logging into my site. All I see is my my outbound data, which has increased a lot, which is
I
awesome.
bet.
It's really cheap, honestly. I'm using the Railway. It's like not costing me anything, so it's pretty great. It's been a very pleasant hosting experience. No one's DDoSed me yet, so
Yet.
you never know, man. Someone's gonna want to buy a player, and you're like, I don't want anyone else to see how this affects data. DDoS me or something.
Yes, it's right, definitely. What? So let me ask yourself, and so if somebody's going to open up afterseason.fun, they're playing sport.fun, what is the number one thing that they need to know that they need to be looking at, they need to know how it works and they need to be using it?
I think if they play week to week, they should hop into the drop factor calculator. I think this is really important, especially there's been a lot of talk about how playing the game is not about earning TP right now. It's about judging what other people will do, or judging to the next round. And I do agree to a certain extent. There are a lot of players who I do not think are worth holding, even if they win, just due to the fact that they will likely dump, especially with the way the offseason is set up. Kenneth Walker, by the way, if he loses, I am cooked. Like, it is not a good scenario. Because he's not the greatest. The bright side is I do think that the Seahawks are very good. But basically, this drop factor calculator tells you how much can a player drop by in terms of price and you would maintain your value based on the amount of TP they would earn. So a really interesting example right now is Sutton. The funny thing is I put number of shares here so you can see how much you'd earn, but it doesn't actually matter. It's always the same percentages. So you could put 1 share, 10,000 shares, it doesn't actually matter. But Sutton has like a 60% drop factor if he hits first. So Sutton could get first. The Broncos lose, and you would still maintain your value as long as it doesn't drop by more than 60%. And I think the really appealing one here is 40% in second. Like, that's very reasonable. He is going up against Puka, JSN, and Diggs, so it's going to be a tough week for him. But it's an interesting thing to view. And I think especially as people come into this next season and start playing week to week and deciding what players they want to buy, you should really consider, do I want to buy this player because I want to make TP, or am I buying this player because I want to trade them? And selling players at the beginning of the games has been a very viable strategy for a lot of people. So I think this is a really helpful tool when people are deciding whether or not they want to hold their player or go through. We could see some changes in the way that the site works as well that would make this less valuable. But right now, I think this is a really good way of deciding what players you want to hold on to or sell.
What's that TP value tied to then? Is that the 180 legendary pack kind of cost?
It is. So this is tied to the expected value of the legendary pack. And also, my expected value for the legendary pack is entirely weighted with the idea that every share drops equally and that the share range ends up averaging right to the middle. Yeah. I don't know if that's true. It could be a normal curve. There could be like 4 different cards, and each one is like a tier where you get like 3 randoms and then 1 good. I have no idea. So this is a huge estimation out there, but it seems to be about what other people have as well. So that's what I'm using for TP for price. I probably should just use TP, but obviously in order to do a drop factor, I can't. I have to.
Yeah.
So it's not perfect, but I do think it's a good way of at least getting some semblance of an idea of who's good to hold and who's scary to hold. You know who's really scary to hold right now? Hunter Henry. This guy is terrifying to hold right now. And it's because tight ends just don't earn enough. But even if he's guaranteed to get first, but if he drops by even 15% after that, he's not worth the TP that you get from it. Kind of a very easy but scary hold in my opinion.
I think that's, yeah, we definitely see that, and it's something that I've kind of spoken about a lot, is when the game first started, and I've spoken it to Laird in the free to play. I'm not too sure if you were about for that. The free to play was very much, right, you've lost, goodbye, see you later, and the price would, go from 100% down to 2%. We then came over to the pro version, and it was very much TP chasing. So, right, I've got there's in the football, there's 15 games being played from Friday night to Monday night. I'm going to buy into the Friday night player. Okay, they've not scored high enough. I'm going to sell you and buy into the Saturday. I'm going to sell you, buy into the Sunday, sell you, buy into the Monday. And you could hold somebody that played on a Friday night. They've, and they finished the weekend number one out, the 5 forwards. But that sell in people chasing the TP elsewhere has actually eliminated any profit that you've got. And then you're now opening the packs going, well, I've lost. And that kind of then started this new wave of people buying a few days out and then selling an hour before kickoff. And then that's transcended to buying 2 weeks away and selling before, and there's this whole cycle of people saying, well, is the TP actually worth the risk? Because again, you're doing that drop factor based on if they finish first. Well, it's the NFL. Nico Collins, I got absolutely stung on Nico Collins the other week because CJ Stroud couldn't throw to save his life. And then Nico Collins gets a concussion and leaves the game. And I'm like, fuck. And the sell just goes woomph. And I've eaten everything. And people are weighing up that risk to reward in saying, is it better just to take, a 2% profit before the game's even started, or do I hold out and try and get 100% profit? And where do you draw the line? So it's nice to see that kind of drop that factor in. And I'll be totally honest, I've not come across that, and that's probably something I should have been using since the start of the playoffs. Because I've been like a madman going, do I sell, do I not? And then I check 10 in a row and 5 people have already sold. And I'm like, shit, it's too late, sell. I'm chasing my own tail on that one.
Yeah, I do think that we've, right now, everyone is kind of playing a very short-term game. Not everyone. I think a lot of people have actually moved into off-season players now. And also on top of that, I think there's still a lot of demand for dynasty players, which is good to see. Justin Jefferson actually is a relatively stable price for how terrible his season has been. So people are aware of the player's actual skill, which I think is quite nice. That said, I do think 2 things. I think, 1, I would hope that in the future there is some sort of disincentive to dump immediately before games, just because from a user perspective, I want to feel good about being correct and winning, not just feel good about PvPing better than other people. And I personally, my strategy for the offseason is to get a ton of TP, because I do think the prices are going to go down. But the nice thing about having TP is that when prices go down, pack shares go up. So you just stack hard, which is great. That's exactly what I want to do. My viewpoint is for next season. But the other thing you were saying was that, people have started buying 2 weeks out for games. I think what will eventually happen, especially as more liquidity comes into the market and player prices don't slide as much on a singular, large sale, is that people are going to be buying players no longer 2 weeks out or a week out or a few days before a game. They're just going to be buying players for the long term. In the same way that you play your dynasty league and you make a trade for a player that you think is going to be good 6 months down the line. And I think that long-term vision with more liquidity and a little bit more players, and it's a kind of a cop-out, guys, with more liquidity, everything's going to be great. When the price goes up, everyone's going to be happy, obviously. But I do think the ability for people to be able to exit positions without impacting everyone else's positions is going to be majorly beneficial for the idea of buy and hold mentality. Because if it's hard to buy and hold when a player could drop 15% on one guy deciding. Frankly, I think everyone should just stomach it up a little bit. Got it. You be strong with your decisions. I know a lot of people here have very strong opinions in the Discord, but I don't know if their wallets are matching that. But anyway, overall, that will improve over time, and I think that will only get better. But yeah, use this tool if you're deciding to hold someone in playoffs, because it's helpful.
I was going to say, strong opinions in Discord? No way.
No, what? Dude, the Discord, okay, I'm going to be honest. I love the strong opinions in Discord. It's been so much fun every game day just hopping in Discord and talking the NFL. And it's something I hope that they're able to implement a little more in the app as well, because easily one of my most favorite parts has been interacting with the community. And Sleeper, I don't know if you guys have ever used Sleeper for looking at players, but Sleeper has comments under events that happen. So like a player will score a touchdown and people will leave comments under it. And it is the funniest. It is hands down the funniest stuff every single time. And this Discord is like that, but everyone's going at each other personally, which is hilarious. So I'm hoping that they somehow implement some sort of social system into football.fun at some point, because it's a blast. And I think also the core group of players that we have playing the NFL right now is a very fun group to play with overall. I don't feel massively aggrieved if someone decides to exit a position and absolutely tank my value. It's not a big deal. So it's yeah. I just shout out to the community. They've been pretty wonderful.
You obviously have all this data in front of you as you're working on the site. Do you find yourself TP chasing more than share price watching, or like have you found yourself all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I think I might be doing this wrong based on the data, and you either switch or you don't and say, no, I'm just going to do this because I think this is actually the right way to go?
Literally every day. I feel like I am wrong. I will look at something and I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, for example, I just earned 50K TP on Kenneth Walker placing first, and it was awesome. I had no intention of even owning a single share of Kenneth Walker before about a week ago. I was like, this is dumb. I don't know Kenneth Walker. I bought a ton of him. No, not a ton. I bought like 50K of him before playoffs started, because I was like, he's too low to be going into a playoffs. That's the only decision I ever made around him. Then I recently just bought like another 200K Kenneth Walker because I decided to GP chase. I had never done that before. I will not say that it was based on analytics, though. That was more of a gut feeling. But I do think that I think the best part about the game is that they're all valid. You can TP chase, you can trade players before a game, you can play exclusively for offseason, and they're all fundamentally correct ways of playing. And what determines whether or not you are skilled, I'm going to put quotes on that because I don't think I'm a very skilled player, but I had a good week. What determines whether or not you're skilled is just whether or not you're consistent with your decisions. And I think kind of like trading in a very similar sense, I think people should just write down their decisions, get a journal, decide, write down why you want to trade a player. Hop in Discord and defend it to other people. Gianti, I remember there was a huge Gianti discussion a few weeks ago, and it was great because I got everyone popping in going, Gianti's wonderful. Gianti sucks. He's had a terrible season. He's on the Raiders. The Raiders do suck. But they're getting Mendoza. They have $100 million in cap space. Like, are you trying to tell me they're going to be a bad team next year? There's no way they could be worse than they are now. So I do think that there's a lot of valid strategies, and I've swapped between a ton of those valid strategies. And I won't say I've settled on anything yet, but that's where the fun lies, isn't it?
Literally kind of put your money where your mouth is and go for that. I think it's a brilliant one, almost just backtracking a little bit where you were saying, with a higher liquidity, people can say, right, on game week 1, I'm going to buy this player and hold them for the season. And we're almost seeing that on the football side of things, where people are now looking at the World Cup and saying, right, who do I buy for the World Cup? I need to start getting maybe a Yamal shares or Mbappe shares. And, they're almost trying to predict who's going to be in the World Cup final. And it's like, we're so far away from that, but people are already saying, I need to start getting the jump on it early. Should whatever happen, I want to be in at entry level 1. I'm just going to ask you to share again back on the off-season page. I think it's important to kind of, we have those conversations as well on the NFL side of things, and people saying, well, who are you buying? Can you share back up on the off-season rewards estimator?
Absolutely.
Because So when people are obviously holding for the World Cup now, it's kind of, it mirrors, I think, what people are starting to look at doing for the NFL. I'm going to go to yourself, Laird. Looking at the data now in front of you, with probably no record of anything, who's your kind of go-to pick then, if you're maybe planning for next season, looking at the TP? What are you kind of thinking? A bit of personal, not financial advice. Definitely financial advice.
It's funny. I think the way that I've been looking at off season, like I'm thinking of how much am I going to accumulate in the off season, and I'm thinking of it almost wholly in the sense of what will these share prices be come July? Because I think June, probably July. Basically, I think we'll see a huge move of money from, again, not financial advice, from the football side of things in the NFL after the World Cup. Like I expect them to make a really big deal about the World Cup to the point where maybe a lot of NFL money goes, or some NFL money goes to the football side just so people can participate, and then the money will move back. And so, not to say that I'm almost like not concerned about off-season TP of guys I haven't bought yet, but I'm more looking at literally share prices. What are the most I can accumulate share-wise of some players and not worry about the TP? Because, like I said, I want to get into July and August holding way more shares than I do now and expecting those guys to be more valuable. And I know the way I will play it, absolutely, is I'll get a couple of guys who were, ideally like 5, 6, 10x. And I'm like, yep, time to sell. And I won't. I'll just hold them and I'll play. I'll find some TP calculator. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. If this guy finishes first, I'll win 1 million TP. And so then I won't sell. But that's how I'm like genuinely off-season TP. I hate saying this with somebody who created an entire site dedicated to off-season TP, but like I'm not from now, at least, I'm just not thinking about it. Now I have players already that I've bought for off-season TP and stuff like that. It can change a little bit, but yeah, I'm just more in the accumulating guys who I think, like Jamar Chase, I'm more interested in now than I am anyone specifically for off-season TP.
I think I'm almost at a similar kind of mindset with that. I mean, the ones that when I look through my my port, I've not kind of shifted out away from playoffs fully into off season yet. I've kind of, with packs, I'm holding a few people, but the big ones for me is, I can never pronounce his name properly, Emeka Edgebuka, and Lad McConkey is kind of where I'm at. They've both shown what they can do. I think the price is quite cheap in terms of accumulating shares. And a third one on that is somebody I was kind of big on coming back out of his injury, Bucky Irving. He obviously went out, I think it was like week 3 or week 4, and with a bit of a knock, and then that injury was a lot longer than it was expected. So it was perfect timing for Sport.Fun, because when Sport.Fun launched, he was coming back from injury, getting some snaps and stuff, getting some carries. And I thought, okay, he's got a chance to maybe get 1 or 2 scores. And I was big on Bucky Irving. I had, in the 6-figure shares of him. And his price went from, I don't even know what it was, 0.015 cents, and it kind of crashed all the way down. And it was 0.002. And I've just had a quick check, it's 0.004. And I'm looking at that and a guy at Bucky Irving thinking, there's potential that he'll come down a little bit more between now and the end of the season as people shake up and plan what to do. Bucky Irving hasn't got any off-season rewards. And if that's a player that I can get, literally pennies on the dollar, I'll be loading up for these guys and not worrying about should, the market cap go up or down and what off-season TP I get, because I feel like I'm somebody that would rather go and put my money over into FDF, football.fun, and try and win that way and be competitive week to week. And I'm not saying I'm going to be able to earn, as much as if I was to be passive with off-season fun. But I'm going to leave, a bit of money in for next season and try and get the jump on any early marketing and pump and go from there. So I love kind of hearing the different strategies and different kind of ways people are playing. And obviously we saw kind of, we saw quite a lot of people coming in for, Trey McBride very, very early. People had realised Trey McBride was going to be one of the biggest TP earners during the season and obviously the biggest reward in the off season. And I think there was a trend where the market cap was coming down and down and down. Trey McBride had nothing to play for and his price was going up and up and up. And I was like, people were already on that. I want to hold the off-season reward. So this is what excites me about Sport.Fun is the fact that, you can get 3 people in a call and everybody's going to look at it differently. And as Baiqn, you were saying earlier, there is no right or wrong way to play it. I think it's brilliant. What about yourself then, and Baiqn, kind of with whoever's smashing in the background? What kind of, who are you looking to pick up and hold for the off season? Who's top of your list?
Yeah, so I still have to make some moves back into dynasty players for the most part. I'm looking to hold top receivers. Jamar Chase, I've gotten a bit of. Justin Jefferson, I want a little bit more of. I'm looking to hold. What I can't decide is whether or not I want to go into Puka or not. That's kind of one of my big decisions. I think he is a phenomenal player. He's easily one of the best eye test receivers I've seen in a long time. That said, all prices are good prices at the moment. That does not mean that comparatively he's my favorite choice. So, when I look at guys like Gianti, who are really, really low in price, and I also think will be huge, huge workhorses in the next year, I can't decide yet whether or not I want to maximize even my dynasty prospects and ignore Puka, or just get Puka and feel safe. I think it's I'm going to end up moving towards playing a little bit more aggressively and going for value as opposed to safety. So I will probably skip out on Puka. But that's kind of my goal, is to end up owning 3 or 4 of the top dynasty players in every single position, with the exception of quarterback. And I have, from a purchase a while ago, I have a ton of Egbuka and I have a ton of Drake London. And those are going to be the main drivers of my offseason TP. And that's kind of my setup. I'm doing a little bit of a hybrid model. I'm going for decent offseason TP, but I also want to own the better dynasty players for the upcoming offseason. And I do think, to me, I don't care about the price right now, and I really don't care about the price halfway through the summer. I'm in this for the next season. I'm in this for when NFL starts up again. I'm super pumped for scouting. I'm pumped to be able to do something in the offseason as opposed to just stare at analytics all day, because it's kind of what I did for fantasy, and it wasn't that fun. So I'm pumped to have some sort of alternative.
You should just get a bunch of Puka in your off-season packs. That's all.
I mean, that's kind of the plan,
Just get the $400 pack. Stop getting the $70.
Give me Puka packs, and that's it.
Very simple game here.
Exactly. I mean, can't lose.
That's definitely, one of the reasons, I suppose, that people should hold in the off season. And I think it's brilliant that you can't just swap NFL shares for FDF shares, and there is that kind of barrier down the middle. And that's kind of why I'm somebody that jumps between one or the other. So I don't care about going and getting 100,000 TP in NFL, because I don't necessarily want all of that in NFL. I might want some of it in FDF, and then you've got all that. It's tied to different things. But yeah, that secondary pool of TP where you open packs and they can start getting you rewards, I suppose, is probably a kind of a compound return, to call it, that people may not even be paying attention to. If you're looking at how much TP you can get, which was I think 130,000 as it stands, you'll get that drip fed throughout the off season. And as you get that drip fed throughout the off season, you'll be able to open new packs, and those packs will have shares, and those shares will get you even more TP rewards. So actually that 136,000 might end up at 150, 160,000 come the start of next season. And those are the kind of things that I think people might be sleeping on. But also, after looking at your kind of drop factor calculator and around the week by week, it's now on my mind as well, is saying, well, if you're buying a Puka Nakua now, what's the drop that you can afford to have until that off-season TP is no longer kind of returning, and you're requiring new funds to come back in and offset the losses. So it's a massive, massive cat and mouse game, and I think your site is brilliant to allow people to actually just go and look at the raw data and make their own decision. I think if anybody was to sit here and say this is the safe bet, this is the guaranteed win, we'd be talking out our arse. So, massive thank you for setting up this site and kind of offering it to the community just completely free of charge. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think so final word I'll say, like, I think Laird has it right. Like, I want more shares. Like, at the end of the day, I just want more shares of these players. And so come off season and come anything, I think people should. I'm very, very bullish on this for next season. So I do think people should take a look at who they want. And my site has some great data, but that's not the only ways to make decisions. And so, everyone come in, take a look at all the data, decide what you want to do. But I like that you play from the heart, Palmer. I think I need to do that a little more. I've never had more fun than cheering on Kenneth Walker after the Bills lost. That was so depressing. It was better when Kenneth Walker then absolutely balled out. I never cheer on an injury, but thank God the Vulture Charbonnet is not in right now. But yeah, it's thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Hope that you guys, if you have any suggestions for the site, hit me up on Discord. I'm pretty active. And yeah, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Well, one final question before you do go, and talking about the future. Obviously, we currently have football and we have American football. We don't have any other S-word sports in the game currently. What sport would you maybe like to see get added in next? Obviously, basketball is the one that's kind of being talked about. Is that something you'd be excited for, or would you favor a turn in a different direction?
I think right now, no, I wouldn't favor it. I do think basketball or baseball would be the next one that I think would be really good. But I think where I'm at right now is we saw what happened with liquidity when they launched the NFL, and it completely split. And also, I think what it showed kind of as a test case was that the people who play football.fun specifically are not necessarily going to be the power users for NFL, for sport.fun as a whole. There were a lot of people who got packs and you can look at the data on this, but a lot of people who got packs who just sold. And I don't blame them for selling. I understand that they got packs for playing football.fun and then they didn't want to play NFL, and that's totally fine. But I do think it shows that there's a Venn diagram of people who want to play all the sports, and how much actual overlap there is between players, maybe yet to be seen, but it's clearly not as much, not enough to the point where I think we should be introducing way more sports and not perfecting what already exists. I think there's enough improvements to be made to both football.fun and the NFL before they start going for and targeting more sports. I don't think targeting more sports will bring in significantly many more players for what we already have. I do think targeting fantasy players and targeting fantasy soccer and football players will bring in a lot more people. I already kind of want to do a stand here at my campus and advertise it at some point, because I know a lot of people who would really enjoy this, and I think it's a great product and it's a lot of fun. So starting to get that out there next season, I think is going to be huge. It's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Laird, any final questions or comments?
Nothing that wouldn't take 25 more minutes to answer. So I'll just pass on the last questions.
Perfect. Well, sounds like we need to get you back on for another episode down the line. And Baiqn, thank you very much for coming on and for walking through your site. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear a bit of the insights and the reasons behind why you create the website. And thank you everybody for tuning in and listening. I know we've not done an episode for a couple of weeks, so got a brilliant hour of listening to our beautiful voices once again. I will catch you next week.